local time, so we are going to start the panel discussion on digital resiliency of civil society in the context of shrinking civic space. I'm Santosh Sigdel from Digital Rights Nepal. So we have been listening a lot since yesterday morning about the digital space defamation. We also discussed about the pandemic and its impact on civic freedoms this morning. So it's a kind of picking up from there. So in this panel discussion, we'll discuss civil society. They are very important part of the public governance. They keep check and balances in the work of government and the private sector. But at the same time, civil society is not a generic term. It consists of large dynamics, various dynamics, and it's not only the non-governmental organization. It might be the small local community organization. It might be the faith-based group. It might be the self-help group. So civil society is a larger concept. So the pandemic and the regulation around the pandemic has affected the work of the civil society. But at the same time, we have to also discuss how resilient the civil society is, because we have been, as a civil society, they have been pushed to the wall by the government and the big tech companies as well. But are they aware about the threats they have been facing? Are they capable enough? Is there a capacity they need to combat the kind of threat they have been facing? So in this panel discussion, we'll be discussing around the different dimensions around the resiliency of civil society. So we have 4 panelists, 2 on-site and 2 remote participants, making it fully hybrid. So on-site we have Achia Nila, who is Women in Digital, Director of Women in Digital, and she's from Bangladesh. And we have Sarai Halepolu Tebita. She is from Samoa. She is ICT Director of National University of Samoa. And I believe that our 2 panelists from remote panelists, they have already joined. So Arjun, are you there? Arjun Adrian D'Souza. I believe Arjun is there. Okay, Arjun is there. Arjun is a legal counselor at the Software Freedom Law Center, SFLC India, and he is practicing law and providing legal support to the civil society organization. And we have Marius. Marius is basically a researcher. He used to work for Open Society Foundation for more than a decade. And now Marius is involved in research, and he's, so just to make sure, the organization Marius is from, he's director of the Center for Media, Data and Security Society. So there is a independent publication, research publication that map the digital media around the 56 countries worldwide. So he's a researcher, and he's having a close look at the laws and policy development and how the civil society has been working in this scenario in the Asia Pacific region, not only in Europe, but Asia Pacific region. So welcome all the panelists to the session. And now I'm going to start the session with, I have given the background. So the situation after the COVID, what happened is, especially not only in South Asia, but overall Asia Pacific, civil society, they were kind of compelled to go to digitization. And they were using the small organization. I can give you example from Nepal, India, and Bangladesh. The small organization, because of the lockdown and others, they had to adopt the new communication channels, new ways for advocacy, new ways for communicating with their stakeholder. So they were kind of compelled to the digital platform. But at the same time, the whole that scenario was new to them. So along with that, there was also a kind of threat towards them. And we heard about the Pegasus, which was used against the human rights defenders and civil society organization journalists earlier. There are laws which criminalizes the defamation and attack the civil society organization and independent media. There are cybersecurity laws which attack on independent civil society organization. So in this situation, my first question to Marius would be, so what are the common operational challenges, including the trend and sources of threats that CSOs face, from the sensitive to surveillance, in an already shrinking civic space. So, Marius, are you with us?
Yes, hello. Well, good afternoon for your audience there. Good morning in the place where I am. Thank you for the invitation. Let me just go straight into your question, as we have a lot to discuss. I think it is really the issue of digital safety and security is very important. I just wanted to add to what you said about our research work. We specialize in comparative research work in our studies, and our focus is indeed media, but we look also at how tech companies operate and engage with civil society. So we do studies, we conduct studies in a number of countries, including the region that we are focusing on today. And we do these comparative studies to have an idea and to understand this phenomena at a global level. Back to your question, I think there are many challenges. I think the issue of digital safety and security to civil society organizations and human rights defenders in the Asia-Pacific region is extremely important. There are a number of studies that have been conducted recently, and they also investigated the impact of COVID. One of them that we have looked at recently was conducted by Engage Media, and collecting all the data and looking at all the trends in the region. I think there are four main problems or threats. One has to do with the lack of, or the gap in skills and knowledge about digital safety among human rights defenders and various communities that are at risk of these threats. The second problem has to do with a very high level of online harassment and hate speech. And this is not a problem only in this region, but we can see it in many other places. We have, as you just mentioned in the Santosh, in the introduction, the problem of cyber laws that do not protect human rights defenders against digital attacks. And also looking at the work that we do in the media field, we see a major problem in in many countries in the world with governments using the pretext of disinformation to adopt laws that are counterproductive and that, in fact, at the end of the day, clamp down on internet freedom and media freedom. And finally, there is an issue with telecom companies that do not, I don't know what I think more research is needed there, but do not have the adequate policies to protect the subscribers' rights, especially when it comes to privacy, but also freedom of expression. So if you look at all those, I think if you take them together, we have a situation of a really high level of risk that we have to discuss, which is what we are doing today. And obviously, the COVID-19 pandemic played an important role. I guess my colleagues in the panel will refer to that, but simply I just want to say related to that it has played a major role simply because everybody moved online. So whatever we did over these years, we moved online, and as a result, the attacks intensified. The attacks against freedom of expression activists and human rights defenders have intensified.
Thank you, Marius, for giving the broader picture. So as you said that is the research from the Engage Media showed the major four categories of the threats towards the civil society organization include their capacity, lack of capacity about the cybersecurity and cyber safety, the online harassment, and the cyber law, repressive cyber laws, and the laws relating to media, such as disinformation and misinformation relating laws. But at the same time, thank you for highlighting the role of the telcos or the private companies also, who plays role and who has to also ensure the rights of the people. So coming to the next question, because we have seen this in all the countries, but talking about the specific countries, because SLFC is providing legal support to the journalists and others human rights defenders also in such cases. So Arjun, I would like to hear from you, what are the major threats CSOs and HR defenders have been facing in this region? And there might be some example from India, but others also, because SLFC is watching in the region also. So we would like to hear from you on that part. Arjun?
Thanks, Santosh. Hi, everyone. So good afternoon. Before I touch upon the threats that the civil society organizations are facing in the region, I'd like to just contextualize where we stand today. So the internet, as we understand, is merely 30 to 35 years old today. So while there has been massive exponential growth in technological advancement, there is the impact of it has still lagged behind, and it is a natural consequence. So I think civil societies place themselves in a very unique position in such background, in that they champion this responsibility of informing people of their rights and their duties while engaging in any interaction online. So with this background, Santosh, I would touch upon briefly the threats that civil societies face and human rights defenders face in the region. I think primarily the one threat that is faced by civil societies is through certain statutory hurdles. In that, the functioning of civil societies takes a backseat, takes a drawback when you have imposed government sanctions on their functioning, on their free functioning. So while the impact and the intention would be to have greater good done for a lot of people, it the functioning of civil societies does not allow that due to government sanctions. So I think primarily that would be one of the major concerns. A second concern would also be lack of funding. We understand that it is more often than not a lack of resources that we cannot approach another project that we would feel greatly about, and that primarily comes down to a lack of whether a personnel or even pecuniary resources. So that is another very huge aspect that threatens the functioning of civil societies. Another one that I can think of is that there is a very distinct understanding between how the global north understands civil societies to be functioning as opposed to how they actually do function in the global south. The intricacies, the nuances are very different. The impact, the stakeholders are very different. So I think by getting a very, by diving deep and understanding the nuances of the global south and the requirements, I think we can proceed towards having a very beneficial impact for civil societies here. Another one, and a very common one, unfortunately, is activist burnout. So while you are always against the wave and you are trying to protect freedoms online, so SFLC has been maintaining an internet shutdowns tracker for the past many years, and which has been cited very often. It still serves to show a very unfortunate fact that governments would resort to internet shutdowns very easily on very flimsy grounds, very common. So that becomes a very tragic fact of addressing such issues. So while there are many more limitations by which civil societies are governed, I think these are the main ones. And I would be looking, of course, this is of course in the backdrop of the COVID-19 pandemic, which placed huge restrictions on the functioning. However, it also allowed civil societies to inform more people about their rights. So that's what I would like to say about this, Santosh. Thanks.
Thank you, Arjun. And we have online participants also, and we have here online moderator, Mr. Tankar Azarial. He is looking at the screen and going through the question and comments, if any. But now I'll come to our on-site participants. Achia, so we have heard the background, how the situation is, and I think, as Arjun said, the trend is similar in the countries around South Asia or Asia Pacific. There are statutory hurdles, and at the same time, lack of funding is one of the major issues the civil society organizations are facing in the South Asia region. So in this context, what are the common operational challenges, other operational challenges and sources of threats? Because we talked about the threats and the challenges, but I think we have to go into the nuances and look at the stakeholder who are posing the threats so that we become resilient. So how do you see the sources of threats to the civil society organization in the region? Thank you.
Thank you, Santosh. I'm Achia Nila, founder, managing director, Women in Digital, and I'm from Bangladesh. So, I think about Bangladesh scenario, like in this pandemic, what I have seen in my country, the COVID just shown us how to use the technology, how to use the internet, how to come in the technical world. So that is very achievable things in this COVID. But what's happening? To calm everybody in internet using the technology, there is a huge problem facing in the like cyber attack and other cyber issues. So what I have seen in Bangladesh, whenever any new stakeholder, it can be software, it can be social media, anybody is come, there is no regulation. And like we can post anything in our social media, but we don't know how to post it. And if what I have seen, there is a law come in Bangladesh. So if you want to do anything, you need to give some clarification to the government. So government can sue you anytime for any type of problem happening, or you need to there is a nowhere we can explain, like if anybody use anything without knowing the law and force, so she or he can be fired anytime from any issues. So I have seen that is one problem is happening in Bangladesh. And another thing is like for the social media users increase in a country like us and other Asian countries. So but there is no rules and regulations. So we have seen our girls, our women, they are every day, every time facing lots of harassment in social media because of cyber issues. And another thing we have seen in Bangladesh, especially in this time, we have seen there are lots of women entrepreneurs, especially social media women entrepreneurs increasing in Bangladesh. But the thing is that what we have seen over there, they just following one thing like a cash on delivery system. So like there is a trust issue. They are not doing any online transactions because of cyber threat, because of cyber issues. So and a few years back we have seen we have affected by a huge threat for cyber attack from the Philippines, and our Bangladesh bank is attacked because of we can't actually avoid this type of threat. So the thing is, these are the problem we are facing, but main problem is actually we don't have any rules and regulations. And when anybody selling any stakeholder come in our country selling any software, we don't have any rules and regulation how we can affected by that software, and should we use it or not, there is nothing. So main important thing is the country like us and other countries, we need to concentrate on rules and regulation. We need to develop some policies actually, so then people will understand how we can protect us. Because nowadays like digital but once upon a time we always talk about digital literacy, it should be in the technical field, but now we already learn it, so we need to think about the next level. So now we need to keep us safe in the cyber world. So how we can save, and we need more and more awareness program. So in Bangladesh, I have seen government declare one call center, and they give a phone number like a 333. So anybody facing any problem, he or she can call immediately. But this can be one option, but it not be the main option. So like before she facing the problem, they need to create some awareness program. So then I think we can avoid this type of problem. So government need to actually give more focus on how they keep people safe in the cyber world. They need to create the rules and regulation, the proper rules and regulation, so that we can avoid this problem. Because we are literate, but we need to meaningful literacy. So like I know these things, but I need to know proper way, then we can avoid these things. And yes, this is government responsibility to keep us safe in the cyber world and other world. And we civil society, we can take initiative, but yes, funding is the issues. We can't we can take the initiative, but we cannot implement everything by our own money. So yeah, I always think about government should be work on that.
Thank you. when earlier Arjun was saying about the role of the civil society, sometimes we are not the program implementer. That is the job of the government. And about the meaningful participation, I believe that meaningful literacy, I believe that you meant digital and media literacy and use meaningful literacy. About the one of the suggestion rules, laws and regulations, sometimes that is tricky. We have seen that many of the countries, we ask for the laws and regulation, and the government misuse the laws to again suppress the civil society organization. So coming back to our on-site panelists, Asia is diverse, and even the Asia Pacific is very diverse. And we have from the Asia Pacific Samoa, we have Sarai, who not only represent the academia, but civil society as well. She is a leading figure from the ICT community, civil society, ICT community there. So Sarai, we are talking about the digital risks that the civil society organization have been facing in the region. So as an academician and as a civil society activist there, how can CSOs in Asia Pacific region navigate the digital risk that we have discussed, and what should we focus on? Because we cannot focus on everything at once. So maybe we can prioritize from here, but we can take few agendas from here and we focus on those agendas. And would be happy to hear some best example if you have got from the country or around any other economy. Thank you. To you, Sarah.
Thank you for the question, Talo Fa'o. And good evening. I'm Sarai Tevita from Samoa. According to the question, civil societies have different roles, have different purposes. Some civil societies, they are digital literacy. Some civil societies, they are not, like religious groups, youth, community-based. And some civil societies, they're non-profit organization, but they are really into digital literacy, meaning that those are the ones that know how to tackle digital risk, or you know what a digital risk is, something that unwanted that happened, but it's happened. So when it comes to level of digital literacy, the worst or the vulnerable ones are those with minimum digital literate. They are illiterate in digital. But for those know how to handle the risk, the digital risk, those with, they are literate. Those are, so the problem or the issue here is that civil societies, they have limited access to funds, to do promotion, to do awareness of what to do. As I mentioned before, they have different purposes, different roles. So they're not, we can't say, you come all do this, you come all do that. No, but when it comes to technology, technology is not discriminating. It affects everyone. In terms of digital risk, I can say that infrastructure-wise, it's another risk for all the civil societies, because we're going to use communication, we're going to use connectivity, so everyone will use that. In terms of the relevant content that will be the users and civil societies, people in the civil societies will be the same people in the government, same people in the business. So we can't really, discriminate ourselves from this world digital transformation we are living in. It's just a matter that we need to understand what is our purpose in doing such and why are we doing it. With digital inclusion and digital transformation, we need to go with the flow and understand, so that to minimize and mitigate any issues or any risks that harm our surroundings, especially our people. So I'll take an example. During this pandemic, we have a Pacific scorecard, gender scorecard. They gave us a time frame, and that time frame including the lockdown. And we can't do much because we need to go out and interview people. But thank you to the technology, we use these platforms like Zoom, we use Teams, anything that's available in our hands to continue what we've been called to do. It's nothing that we can, if there's a pandemic, they are locked down, then we sit down and think that's it. No, the technology did that for us. It continues our service. It gives us to move forward, to create more opportunities, to create the economical surrounding for us. So in terms of the civil societies for digital world, we need to work together. As long as you know your purpose, why are you there? Why are you doing this collective thing? So, and then you share the knowledge, you share the code so that you share the resources, because we don't have enough resources. Different countries have, you know, your strengths are my weaknesses. My weaknesses, your weaknesses are my strengths. So that's the civil societies. So in terms of technology, it's an enabler. It's enable everything, the government, the business, the regulations, and everything. So I hope I answer your question. Thank you.
We agree that civil society is very diverse concept. At the same time, their challenges are also very diverse. Funding is one problem. Their repressive laws are another problem. But we are focusing here on digital threats they have been facing and the digital resiliency they have and whether we have to increase that. So in this context, focusing on that part, Marius, I want to get back to you again. So how do you see the role of a stakeholder, be it government or media or CSO network, to increase the digital resiliency of the civil society organization? How do you see the problem of digital threat, and what would be the role of the stakeholder to increase the digital resiliency? Marius?
Sure. Yes, that is a very important question, and hearing my my colleagues in the panel talking about the problems, it seems to me that of course we can think about what each of these players that you mentioned, these stakeholders that you mentioned, what role they should play. But I think based on the work that we have done, the research and data we have collected, also using and a lot of data collected by many other organizations in the region, I can think about, you know, the good practices in addressing these threats into two categories. On the one hand, I think there is a need for I call the first category the reactive category, where there is a need from the civil society groups to react. They first of all have to play a role in that, and I hear what you are saying about various issues that there are in the region and in many other countries, such as funding, access to projects, and all that. But I think on the one hand, we have to think about more reactive, you know, good practices. And here we can talk about, for example, the reaction to digital threats. That's a very important issue that is being addressed by various researchers and activists. And in fact, in this area, we have seen some improvement, and we have seen some improvement because of improvements in the Asia Pacific region. There was a report that was recently released on global cyber attacks, and they are looking at the so-called the global median dwell time, the dwell time being defined as the number of days a cyber attack you know, goes unreacted to, which fell from 20 days last year down from 24 in 22. And this decrease apparently was driven by the reductions in the Asia Pacific region. So reaction is very important, but in order to react to attacks, you have to have the capacity, and to have the capacity, you need training. You need to improve the skills. So the second, I think the second need in the sector is the need for capacity and training, and of course that cannot be done just like that. For that, you need support, you need funding, you need intervention, sometimes from the government. And I'm saying that as a response, as a direct response to your question. And the third area within the reactive category, I would say, is more focus, more emphasis among human rights defenders and civil society organizations on collecting data. I truly believe, and maybe I'm biased here because I'm coming from the research field, but I think in order to be able to react, to really use the skills that you gain within through training, you need to understand the phenomenon yourself. You have to do your own research. You have to collect data about the types of attacks, because if you understand the types of attacks, I think you are in a position to react in a more effective way. So this is one category, and the second category, in my view, has to do with more like practices that are more advocacy related. And here I'm talking about what civil society groups and researchers and media should do. I group this in a separate category because here we deal with actions that we need others to take. So these are decisions that have to be made and interventions that have to be made by actors other than civil society organizations. And again, this goes to the heart of your question. This has to do with how and in what way governments are intervening. And I think on the one hand, yes, we, I heard our experts talking in the panel now about the importance of having regulations and rules and policies. I think they are very important, but I think we have to be really careful there because we started to see in many countries in the world a lot of regulations that go badly. We have to see a lot, as I mentioned just at the beginning of this panel, we see a lot of governments using or misusing, the things such as disinformation, misinformation, and all these problems to actually adopt very harsh legislation. So I think on the one hand, yes, I think civil society should call and should be involved in calling for more regulation. But on the other hand, I think we have to really make sure that we avoid these traps. The second very important factor here is that in whatever policy level discussions and debates, I think civil society has to be involved. There is really a very strong correlation between, for example, the low levels of media freedom and freedom of expression and the lack of involvement of civil society. In other words, if civil society is not involved in policy-making debates, is not having a dialogue with the governments in adopting such legislation, then we have a major problem and we have a much higher level of risk. So there is a role for the government there. It is a very difficult, difficult discussion to have. It is in some countries a very sensitive issues because that has to do also with media freedom. And finally, I think because you mentioned media and this is our core area of research, I think there is definitely a major role for civil society to play in supporting media freedom and in cooperating with media outlets, in covering these issues, in making them more understandable and more accessible for the general public. I think media it sounds very simplistic, but I think it's really important for media outlets to cover these problems. I think they have to engage more with civil society and cover at a much higher, much more than ever before, these threats. And as part of that, I think the media should really explain to the general public what these threats consist of, who is to blame for them, what is the role of telecom companies there, what is the role of the governments. So there is a lot of roles for many of the stakeholders to play. I know that it is easier to be said than to be to happen, but I think we have to think about those issues and to be more strategic about this. About these interventions.
Yes, we'll get back to you on some of the issues you have raised, especially about the role of civil society organization in policy making processes, how effective they are, how engaged they are. Maybe we want to hear from the Bangladesh. I can give you an example from Nepal, where there is a cybersecurity national policy is being drafted. There is an information technology bill is being drafted, but the traditional civil society organization who prioritize on civil and political rights or the economic, social, cultural rights, the digital rights is not under their purview. They are not thinking about it. And tomorrow, the repercussion would be on all the organizations. So how aware or how capacitated the civil society to take part in the digital rights related policy discourse is another challenge we have been facing in the region. But before going to our panelists again, I would like to request our online moderator Truncaji, whether we have any question from the online participant.
Oh yeah, there is one question, particularly, let me read the name. He's Samik. He asking for the independent, unaligned, unbiased civil society from government, from donor in this shrinking space of the civil society, how we can build the capacity of the civil society or to engage them on independent digital ecosystem in this context. So This is the question, only one question we received so far.
Okay, so who wants to take this question? Nila?
So regarding the policy, the previous things, I want to add that things with this. So the thing is what we have seen in this region or in these countries, when any policy developed by government or policy makers, in that boat you will never see those who are the sector expert. So they develop in the government side or the other side who are developing the policy. They never being any policy expert, like in cyber, they don't being any cyber expert, they don't being any software expert, they don't being any economics when they are developing any economic policy. So there is a lack of being the right person in the right place. And the question actually, the individual, for the individual actually, you the thing is, if you want to come in this ecosystem, so you need to start practicing, and you need to learn actually the accurate thing about the cyber security. And also there is a lot of platform, there is a lot of conversation, country level and international level. So you should participate on that, then you can come in the main ecosystem. And another thing is like in cyber world there is a lot of things. So what I would suggest you, like become an expert on any of the things. Like you can be a ethical hacker, you can be a researcher, you can be a policy maker. So just become an expert on one area and then give your input. So yeah, you will be in the ecosystem.
Rephrasing the question from Samik, Sarai, how possible is it for civil society to be independent from the government, from the donors, and from the tech companies or the private companies? The quote-unquote independent digital civil society, is it possible? And if it's not possible, how to, even if you are getting funding from the government or the funding from the donor agencies, how can we fight for the digital resiliency? Yeah.
Thank you. That's a good question. And that's what I was trying to add on to what Nila mentioned. Independence of our civil society, I don't think it's last, or I don't think there's a sustainability in that, because we need the government intervention in whatever civil society is doing. I'll take an example from my country. Any civil society that has relevancy or any related work that link to one of the government ministries, so they work together. So that is their connection to the government to the civil society. So you need to have that common or shared goals or shared responsibilities. Say, for example, for Samoa IT Association, we are civil society. It's civil society. It's a society of IT people in Samoa. It's a non-government organization. We stay as mutual. So we closely work with the Ministry of Communication and IT. So that is our connection to the government, because we need the government, to help us and to advocate more other projects. And that is our connection. That is our contribution to the government. Say for the Association of Health, of Midwifery, they link to the Ministry of Health. So in terms of technology, the thing is as I mentioned before, the content's relevant on platforms. That's the other thing they need to look at, because when you're on social media, it's free, it's open. So whatever you put online, you need to be considered, you need to be accountable and responsible for that. So education of our people, that's the most important thing. Educate our people what to put online and what not to put online. So that helps you, the civil society, that helps everyone if we educate ourselves first.
Thank you. We have been discussing about the media literacy and digital literacy since yesterday, and I think that is also important in terms of the digital resiliency, not only of civil society, but ourselves as well. So now we are moving to the participant, on-site participant, and based on the this dimension, we have discussed about the threats or risks civil society has been facing in our countries, respective countries, and the measure we have taken. If you have any questions or statement, I'd like to welcome you to the mic and express yourself. And yeah, second.
Yeah.
And if you want any panelist to answer your specific panelist to answer your question, you can name the panelist. Please
Okay.
mention your name as well for the record.
Thank you. Thank you. My name is Sugathan. I'm from Cambodia, and I'm interested with Sarah mentioned about the way that civil society can do to see a resource or to think about the how to make them transparency and inclusive. And the question is, I think how we can start from the civil society to the first step from society to do it, to make it more activity or initiative from society to the digital resilience that start from the civil society. What do you think, and how what point or what they can start from the civil society from the digital resilience? Yeah, you got my question right? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, it's very important, this question. I'll answer from my experience, because from Samo IT Association, we need to come up with an activity. We need to come up with an event. Say, for example, like IGF, Pacific IGF, we need to come up with terms of reference. What do we want? And what is our contribution to the community? And then we propose that to the government so that we can be included in the government plans and their framework. So we need to come up with something that the government, support what we want, your contribution to the government and your involvement. So it has to be a positive one so that the government can support you, so that you'll be included with this digital transformation. So whatever, so you don't want left behind. So any civil society, like I mentioned, different civil societies have different purposes, have different responsibilities. So if it's clear like that, then it will be easier for you, to collaborate. You get what you want. If you have a clear role, you have a clear goal. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And I think we have to have a clear strategy, not only for the civil society that collaborate with the government, but also for the civil society that criticize the government for the repressive laws, their policies and action. So it's not only the collaborate. Sometimes we have to aware them, sometimes we have to criticize them, sometimes we have to stop them when there is a bad laws and bad policies. And we have to have the digital resiliency for that as well, because we might be attacked, civil society might get attacked by this either the government or the government agencies or those people or the organization who supports the government or the people in the government. So I think we have another 2 questions. Yeah, Farooq, first the lady and after that Farooq.
Can I go first?
Yeah,
Okay.
please.
So I am interested with how you have this question about independent civil society not relying on maybe the other stakeholders. Can I have more elaboration from you what you think about the question that you pose? And then I myself agree that the role of government is important, but right now I think that the government has too much power, and instead of serving their constituent, they are serving their own agendas, right? So do you have any ideas? Maybe all the speakers can answer this. Do you have any ideas if we can redefine the government role, especially in internet governance? And yeah, I'll stop there. Thank you.
So I believe the question was to me about the session, how it has been designed. Yeah, so we can think of the internet governance perspective that you have said about the multi-stakeholder approach, where the civil society, government, tech communities, end user, and the private companies, technology field, they all have their role. And we have in civil society has been contributing towards the this internet governance process. And in many countries, we have seen that, as I had said earlier in the background, after the pandemic, and it was just accelerated due to the pandemic. The pace took a pace after the pandemic, but always the civil society organization and human rights defenders, independent media, the independent bloggers have been attacked in South Asia, in many countries, in Pakistan, in India, in Bangladesh, in Nepal. They have been being attacked, and one of the reasons they are being attacked is they are not very capacitated to, do not have the technical capacity to protect themselves in the digital space. That is the digital resiliency. So to kind of combat that, to be immune from the digital attack from the government, and sometimes the big tech companies, and sometimes the big tech companies who are making the software like Pegasus, how can civil society, the term is quote unquote, bringing all independent bloggers, media, journalists, and the human rights defenders within the civil society, how can we build our digital resiliency? So that is the kind of idea behind the discussion. And here we are exploring the role of different stakeholders, and at the same time collaboration within the actors within the Asia Pacific region, so that we can prioritize this issue and take forward some moving agenda action point from the session to forward. I think I'm clear enough for that. And I'll go back to the second question to one of the panelists. So I think I'm clear enough there. Farooq, next question. And if I'm not clear, Marius, I think, can describe it a bit later. Yeah, Farooq.
Yeah, can you hear me? Yeah, I have one question from the speaker from Bangladesh. That my understanding is that Bangladesh has a Digital Security Act 2018. Okay, how safe women online feel because of this law? Because it's called security law. So that's number one question. And my second question is for the moderator. Do you differentiate between civil society and NGO? If those two categories are not same, then why you are mentioning about funding for the civil society? When you depend on funding, then you are no more independent in that sense, like the donors have the control. Thanks.
I think we will start from Achia, so that I have time to think.
Very tough question. So before giving the answer, sir, I will ask you, are you safe for these laws? Are you feel safe? Yeah, you were talking about women. So I am asking the same question. You are a man, so you were safe in online. What do you think? Okay, okay. Actually, the thing is, actually when government design any law, rules and regulations, so they are not thinking about the all level of peoples, because they whatever they have seen in front of them, they have maybe considered that things. Actually, I don't know how they design the things, but in pandemic, what we have seen in my organization and my community, there are huge complaints we get from the online users, and they are facing different type of harassment in online, and they don't know actually where they need to go and how they can solve their own problem. And even host, they are not able to share it anybody. So that means actually they don't know about the act, and they don't know where to go. So I think if government take any initiative, they should circulate it each and every level, so that people will understand, people know what is the law actually, if I am affected by any incident, and where I need to go. And the thing is, if you mention one thing, women in digital. So regarding women in digital, I want to add one thing. In this pandemic, in 2020, we get a huge number of complaints from our network, and they're complaining us, you are designing a project, bringing more women in technology, but you are not designing the project, keep your community safe in online. So we are facing problem, and we declare immediately in 2020 September will be the cybersecurity awareness program for women. So 2020 we arrange different type of awareness program in all over the Bangladesh. And after that, 2021, we do the same. And 2022, this month, my team is organizing different type of awareness programming women for the women, and this is like the school, college, and university. So develop different type of curriculum, and all of the things is developed by us, and this is our own initiative. The thing is, actually, we never think about government will support us, but I believe government, yeah, maybe government will support us or not, but I believe we need to support the government too, because we have some different, we are the user, actually. We are the practical user. We know the fact, but government, those who are making the policy, they don't know the real fact because they don't think about the end user. They think about the user, but they don't know about the end user. So that is why we are developing our own thing. Of course, yeah, when government involved with us, it will be more effective. But if government is not interested to involve any private sector, even any civil society, any individual initiative, that's not a problem. We will take care of ourselves.
Thank you, Achia. And I think the bottom line is making a cyber security law in the paper will not secure us online. We have to do a lot rather than just making laws. And just about your question about the NGOs, NGOs is a part of the civil society, larger civil society. It is not outside. It is one kind of civil society, and it is not substandard type of civil society. Taking a grant or having a donor doesn't make it substandard. It is as much higher as civil society as under the Article 21 of the ICCPR, International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, which ensures us right to form and organize, right to associate. So NGOs are as equal as civil society as others. So that is there. Do we have any other question or comment from the House? Okay, one more, please. We have 8 minutes left, so please.
Hello, thank you for the presentation. My name is Deborah, I'm from Indonesia. So I think I just need your response to what I think. So first of all, I think that CSO, civil society organizations, are often seen as merely beneficiaries or victim of cyber attacks, digital attacks, but not as collaborators. And I think it's because government do not understand the risk of CSOs being weak in terms of digital and cyber resilience to the larger society. And the government does not understand that the attack to the weakest link, CSOs as weakest link, can actually be a proxy attack to attack the larger or the stronger players in the cyber ecosystem. And in my opinion, the government may need to see the extent to which the impact which can occur to the larger society when a cybersecurity attacks a civil society organizations until they realized how impactful it can be if your weakest link is attacked. And that's when they will only invest in the capacity of digital resiliency and cybersecurity of civil society organizations. What do you think of that? Thank you.
You can take the question, and we have also online panelists. So, Sarai?
I'll start, and then our online colleague will finish it. From my opinion, for any organization or any country, for example, if they have a digital readiness assessment first before they, develop something, and that considers all the factors for digital inclusion, that will really help between the civil societies, the government, and other stakeholders. So having our people ready digitally, that will be very helpful to develop something. Like I mentioned before, it all comes down how we think digitally. And then we can accept accept the good and the bad, because we understand what will come after. So making it prepared, digital readiness, making an awareness, involve all the stakeholders, and that will help us, the marginalized communities, those with, they exposed to more vulnerable and more risk than other civil societies. Then I think we're living in a, it's not perfect world, but at least we do something about it. We need to minimize those risks and we need to mitigate those risks so that it won't happen again. Okay. Then, yeah, thank you.
Thank you. So we have 5 more minutes. So along with this question, now we are coming to the, I think we have come to a point that where we agree that prioritization is necessary. We have to prioritize what will come first and where to focus on. But at the same time, I think in Asia Pacific region, collaboration is also important among the stakeholders, among the different groups. So along with this question, Marius, I'll start from you. How can we increase the digital resiliency, digital capacity and collaboration among the civil society organization in the Asia Pacific region? Now, this last session would be the kind of takeaway from the session of, about the action points that we'll focus on the coming days. So Marius?
Yeah, well, I think we kind of touched on that issue earlier when we spoke about the various practices, and I think it is a combination of you know, the need to act from the civil society field on the one hand, so you have to get access to improve your digital security, access to more training and knowledge. I think it's very important also to, as I said, to collect data about attacks. So this is one package, and the second is a more strategic engagement with the stakeholders, with all those that mentioned government and so on. But on top of that, what I wanted to add, because we discussed a lot about the you know, how NGOs are funded and their interaction with various stakeholders, and also the question about civil society versus NGOs. In my view, the civil society is the concept of representing, you know, the civil society that is not connected with other groups, while NGOs are there, you know, expression in concrete expression in interacting with others. And here, what I wanted to stress, it's a long discussion. I only make the point is that it is really important for civil society groups to be independent, because we heard here about the issues of lack of independence. But at the same time, the most important thing, based on all the research that we have done for civil society to be digitally resilient, is to have a very solid funding model. And they have to be funded in a way that doesn't link them to various organizations, especially the government, to be able to operate.
Thank you, Marius. Now I'll move to Arjun, our next remote panelist. Arjun, you have just 1 minute. So how do you prioritize things, and what should we focus on to increase our digital resiliency of the civil society organization?
Thanks, Santosh. So to what Marius already mentioned, I think we should remember that in the Asia Pacific region, most of us are facing the same problems, whether it be through internet shutdowns, whether it be through surveillance concerns or wide exemptions that are granted to the government. I think with that understanding, what do we do now? I think dialogues are very important. Sessions such as the APrIGF help bring such concerns and help us identify with each other that we should work together towards informing people and also removing such hurdles. So I think engaging in such stakeholder conversations helps a lot. Now with the COVID pandemic behind us, hopefully, we have a lot of regional forums that we can set up. We can meet physically in order to further facilitate such conversations and actually contribute towards removing these hurdles and obstacles that exist in our concerns today. As someone already mentioned that someone else's weaknesses is our strengths and vice versa, I think we should rely on each other much more in terms of developing conversations and improving the scenario. Thanks.
I'll start with Achia here, and you have just 1 minute to summarize what should we do further to increase our digital resiliency.
So Arjun already mentioned about dialogue. So if we set up some dialogue in the Pacific, in the Asia, so it will be a good things, and it will come. We will come up with a good result, I think. So this is the one thing. But in country level, what we need to do, we need actually more and more awareness and digital literacy, digital skill development program. Then so that the marginalized people and also in the rural, urban, everybody will know actually what is digitalization, what is internet, what is cybersecurity, what is the threat. Then I think we can, everybody will be in the same phase. So yeah, we need more and more literacy. Thank you.
Sarai Tevita, I believe you agree to everyone, but if you have anything to add on, please.
Yeah, they already mentioned there's a collaborative work between the public and the private sector. So for that to be in a healthy and advance our digital ecosystem, it to have more collaboration between the public and the private sector. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all the amazing panelists, all the online participants, all the on-site participants. This was Digital Rights Nepal. I'm Santosh Sigdel. Thank you, everyone. We have come to an end and we'll prepare the report and we'll share with you. Thank you.
Recording stopped.
Hi, everyone. Just an announcement. The town hall session for the synthesis document is happening next door. There will be no break, so please make your way to the next door. That's where the town hall session for the synthesis document. Thank you. Oh my God.